Yeah. This is the legacy league. Tell me what will your legacy be? Yeah, yeah.
Week 3 in Rhode Island saw half the games finish with less than a 4-point margin. We had one go in overtime, one was a 2-point game not in overtime, and then the 4-point game between Lob City and the Game Breakers. But 6 really good games, I think, coming in. We kind of previewed it last week on the Postgame show. Let's break down Week 3 and get you ready for Week 4. I'm Joey. We have Kyler standing by. Let's start with that overtime game between the Washed Up Boys and the Road Dogs. We'll get the stats up here in a second, but the Road Dogs were up by more than 15. We can do the exact math in a second, but we're up by more than that at halftime. And then, like we talked about, the game went into overtime. And so, Kyler, let's go, before we get to overtime, because it's always kind of short, and that's the easy part. I'll take the easy part. But at the fourth quarter, the second half, kind of down the stretch, let's talk about the Washed Up Boys, who do improve to 3-0, one of our 2 undefeated teams still. They're one of 3 teams with 3 wins because the Skyhawks did play twice, so we'll get to both of their games shortly. But the Washed Up Boys 3-0, what did they do to get there after it? Kind of looking in the first half, the Road Dogs were going to be too much.
Yeah, they played really great defense is what they did. They got a little bit fortunate, but their defense caused the Road Dogs to shoot 28 threes and only hit 5 of them, and it's hard to win when you're only shooting 17% from 3. They did a great job closing out, not offering the easy shots, and that's how they made their runs and came back in. They kept steady heads, and while Road Dogs were maybe bickering at each other, Washed Up really did a great job of staying calm, cool, and collected, and did a great job of that.
Yeah, so as you see there, the Road Dogs, Del Butler 15, but kind of some balanced scoring there. Rion, those stats almost don't, 15 rebounds feels right. He was everywhere. Even in that fourth quarter, he was everywhere. And so you see there 14 points, 15 rebounds, and 3 assists, 3 steals as well. So shout out to him. Let's get to the Washed Up Boys as we talked about. Hendel LaRolle, 31 points. So his second game, I believe he missed week 2, and another 30-point performance, 31 for him, 5 threes, mostly in the second half, and 6 rebounds. Leroy Brown with 17 and 13, making his presence felt down low. And as we talked about in that overtime, it really, it was a close game. Both teams had chances, and we posted the clip on Thursday of Hendel LaRolle getting that kind of turnover. Steal is strong. I mean, that's how I worded it. Bottom line, the Road Dogs had the ball. Mark Washington drives it and loses it. So that's the neutral way to say that. Loses it. It really ends up going to the Washed Up Boys, who turn it into a fast break. It ends up with, Hendel LaRolle, and he dunks it as Rion trails the play and gives up the and one. Washed Up Boys miss the free throw. The Road Dogs have a chance. And I believe it's Mark Washington who had a mid-range jumper to force double overtime, comes up short, and that's how it ends. So the Washed Up Boys pull off that comeback. And just looking ahead really quick, they get the Muffin Tops next week, but just kind of their remaining schedule because every team doesn't play everybody. So for the Washed Up Boys, who are undefeated, like I talked about, Muffin Tops up next. They then get the Game Breakers in Week 5, Providence Defense in Week 6, the All Waves in Week 7, and the Skyhawks in Week 8. So that's going to be a couple fun games, notably no Lob City, as we kind of transition here to keep stuff moving to Lob City, who is also 3-0 and is that other 3-0 team. And they take care of the Game Breakers, who also came in undefeated. It was a battle of 2-0 teams, a rematch from the semifinals last summer, like we talked about. 2 very talented teams, and they battled it out. And so we'll kind of get to the stats on that one. But it is Lob City, coming through. And it really was a big fourth quarter. We didn't prepare for this. But the stats, and even just from watching, it really felt like they were able to open it up a little bit in the fourth quarter. And I know my stuff. 27-17 in that fourth quarter, as it turns out, for Lob City over the Game Breakers. And it was a big third quarter for the Game Breakers, 20-9 advantage for the Game Breakers. So you can see how definitely back and forth. Both teams had leads, but it is eventually Lob City who I like saving holds on for when a team really holds on, like the Halfway Crooks. But we'll get to that one next. So that's not fair to say they held on because Lob City made plays. Joe Secatore hit a couple threes and kind of gave them that little bit of breathing room they needed. But what did you see in this one as kind of the themes, Kyler? Because again, both teams at times looked like they were going to take control, and it really did go back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, we said it last week. It looked like that was Lob City's game to lose. It happened yet again, and they won yet again. So that's just Lob City for you. They're good at pulling out wins, and that's why they have 8 titles. We talked to Joe Secatore at the end of the game. He talked about the emphasis on not letting Hachi shoot, and they held him to just 16 points, which is a respectable number, but compared to his 67 last week is such a better defensive display from them. And their game plan worked, and they pulled it out.
Yeah, Charles Alexander in his debut, 19 and 16, so and a couple blocks where he just jumped straight up and kind of met the ball there, which was what he does. Definitely a defensive player of the year at some point, I believe. Or he might have been MVP, which kind of includes a little bit of everything on that. But yeah, so a former MVP in Charles Alexander, 19 and 16, Hachi with 16. But I think really, the key, and it didn't even feel like 8 for 22 from 3 for the game breakers, because that was kind of what Lob City conceded a little bit. And, you're not giving, in a game like that, they're pretty even. You're not like choosing to give up anything. But they did have some good looks, and notably Gian Abedisian had some good looks and was only 2 for 7. And by good looks, I mean, there's 2 lines on the court there. I mean, it was behind that second line, so 24 feet, 25 feet, a makeable shot. We've seen him hit it. So he was open from that distance, sure. Still unable to kind of hit some that could have shifted momentum even more than it already did. Kind of getting back to Lob City really quick, as you can see there on the screen, Joe Secatore with 33 and 6 threes. Like I said, a lot of those coming in the second half. Nuri Mahmoud, 14 and 8. And Cody Crawford hit some threes as well with 10 himself. Colin Burns goes down early with the injury, so kind of that explains that stat line there, unable to finish the game. So it really was Secatore, Nuri, and their new guy, Kavi, who were updating the stats there, but he was wearing number 8, 15 points. He had some big threes and an and one there as well, attacking the rim. So Lob City also, will be fair, they are also undefeated and kind of, we won't do this for every team, but their remaining schedule, they get the Road Dogs in week 4, so we're going to get to their game. Well, we just got to them. So the Road Dogs coming off 2 very close losses now. The road doesn't get any easier for the Road Dogs with Lob City up next in week 4. And then back to Lob City in week 5, get the Owl Waves. Week 6, Lob City gets the Halfway Crooks. In week 7, they take on Velocity. And in week 8, Lob City closes it out with Providence Defense. So a couple tough games for Lob City, and tough games. They're used to those, but the Road Dogs and Halfway Crooks up next for Lob City, two close games. And as we get to the Halfway Crooks and All Waves, let's kind of transition there. I have to use my fancy sounds. Hold on one second. All right, it is the Halfway Crooks improving to 2-1 through 3 games as they hold on, and that is the proper term for sure, as they hold on against the Owl Waves, and you'll see what I mean in a second when I get to the stats, but they overcome a barrage of threes at the end of the third, a little, mostly in the fourth quarter, and that's kind of where I'll go with the stats in a second, because a lot of the threes the All Waves made, and they were, there kind of most of the game, they hit them in the fourth quarter and were able to nearly pull this one out. It is the Halfway Crooks who makes enough plays, gets a stop on that last possession. The All Waves, I don't think they technically got a shot off in time, inbounding the ball with 8 seconds left, down by 2 like we talked about, and that's how the game ends. So the Halfway Crooks win, and the All Waves, a team with talent that we've talked about, is now 1-2. So there's a couple teams like that where it's like, it doesn't feel right, but that's kind of how it goes early on sometimes based on who you played. So really that fourth quarter is the key. The Halfway Crooks came out, hit shots, Dom Langston, Charles Correa, Jared Hansen. I mean, I can name everyone on the Halfway Crooks with their 5 guys, but a really good first half, a double-digit lead, and then you blink, and with about 4 to go, nearly a tied game. So we can talk about the All Waves here and what flipped for them in that fourth quarter.
Yeah, they got hot. That's what happened. They shot 40 from three, which is way better than the halfway crooks 28%. And that's great shooting. That's great basketball, and that like when you need to hit the threes, they hit them. But just last week we said the halfway crooks won this close game, and it didn't really feel like maybe they deserved necessarily to be higher in the power rankings than the Road Dogs. This time they win a close game, and it feels like they do, because if there is a game that the All Waves are going to win, it's when they shoot double the percentage that the halfway crooks do from three, and they had everything going for them. And yet again, the halfway crooks, cool heads, they pull it out at the end. Not even letting that shot get away is huge. So it's a great performance from the halfway crooks. And this time, even though it's the same result, very, very close win, it's a much more deserving, and it's much more proving for them.
Well, I didn't even have to say it this time, so I love it. But yes, the halfway crooks get the win. Jawan Gamble, 26 and 7 threes, and 4 or 5 of those, if not more, in the fourth quarter for Gamble. That's for sure. I don't have the exact number, but the majority of those, and he was hitting, and he's one of their bigger guys. So now you're kind of pulling the defense out. Right, and he was also able to get to the rim. Josh DePino, 14. And you can see there, 11 for 24 from 3. And again, most of those, so it is interesting how, again, 46% from 3 for the All Waves, 55% from the floor for the All Waves. And if we go back to the halfway crooks really quick, they shoot also over 56% from the floor. And like you talked about, make 7 threes and go 28% from deep, and are still able to get it out. I apologize for the scrolling. They also get out-rebounded by 8. The halfway crooks do. And so, led by Jared Hansen's 24, he made 9 free throws, kind of always attacking. Charles Correa, 2 of 10 from 3, so there's some of the difficulty. But Dom Langston effective, 8 of 13, and Jeff Winchell, 6 blocks. It was a loud 6 blocks. And it's always, funny with him and a couple other players too. I mean, you can talk about Jake Ashstetter that we've talked about, right? How many shots do they affect? So sure, he blocked 6, totally right. He may have affected, or, you won't even know what he affects because someone may not even go in there that would have normally gone in there, another 6, 7, 8 shots, right, throughout the course of the game. So, Lob City has people like that, the game. So like that is the difference. You talked about Charles Alexander. The some of those stats won't show up, is the point, which is huge for the halfway crooks to be able to protect the rim. If they can start hitting more threes, that's when the offense will come and they can rely on that defense a little more and hopefully not have to rely on such a close game to pull that out. But the halfway crooks get to 2-1, same record as the Game Breakers, in case I forgot to mention that. They're also 2-1. Let's get to one of the Skyhawks games here because we do have 2 of them to talk about from week 3, as that team will not play at all in week 4. All Talk Sports will play twice in week 4 to kind of even things back out. We had some guys on vacation, so rather than forfeit and not have some games, we kind of shuffled some things around. But let's go to the closer. Both Skyhawks games were close and nearly. The first one was closer, so let's do that against Providence defense. Again, my fancy sound. Hold on. I love it. It is the Skyhawks on Monday night, defeating Providence defense 67-58. Again, they played twice, so the first game there, Kyler, Providence defense jumped out early, and again, we'll get the stats up here. Noah James led the way on Monday night, 6 threes himself, 38 points, and he was really doing everything and was big in that fourth quarter when the Skyhawks were able to outscore Providence defense 25-18. So we'll focus on Monday first. We'll go in order, but a big win for the Skyhawks, and that pushes Providence defense to 1-2. As we talked about, the Skyhawks would get to 2-1 and eventually 3-1. So now Providence defense, another one of those teams that has players that can hit shots, that can protect the rim, that can do a lot of things and be competitive, find themselves at 1-2. So let's go Skyhawks first, and Noah James adapting quickly to the legacy leagues.
Exactly, yeah, that's the perfect word for it. 38 points and 60% from 3 on an 8.5-foot rim. That's huge to be able to do that in just your third week. I think a lot of credit also goes to Z Burgess. Great defensive work, only 8 points in this game, but Him and Noah James did a great job of shutting down Jaquan Cornwell, who had been lighting it up earlier in the year. He's such a great player for Providence defense that being able to hold him to just 12 points is something that's great for the Skyhawks. Providence defense is a very good team. Juan Jimenez, we talked about earlier, and then Jacob Dorbor with 20 points. It's not an easy win for the Skyhawks, but what a week they had. Being able to just grind out these 2 victories back to back with great plays from pretty much everyone on that team.
I will say, some of the shooting numbers there. So Providence defense shoots under 40% from the floor and under 30% from 3, but yet they were able to build a lead early, and it was a very close game for much of the game, really until, the third and fourth quarter. And you can see there are only 4 players played. It leads me to believe it had something to do with fatigue, which is a thing. When you don't have any subs, we're not pretending to be professional athletes, right? So playing the full game, as much as it sounds like a fun time, it's fun, but it's also very tiring, and it's an adjustment. You have to pick and choose your spots and what goes first in a lot of those situations, because unfortunately my teams have been in those situations where you're playing the entire game, is the legs, right? And so you start settling, and then you're not making the threes that you're settling for, and so Providence defense, a good team, will bounce back, but a tough matchup there on Monday night against the Skyhawks. Like we talked about, Omar Rahman, too, made a huge impact on Tuesday night, so let's kind of get to that game shortly, but 14 and 13 for him on Monday night, and then we'll get to the Skyhawks' second game of Week 3. The Skyhawks come back on Tuesday and take care of the Air Mambas 77-62 after what we remember talking about was the Air Mambas in an overtime game against Lob City. So now the Air Mambas, another one of those teams at 1-2. There are 5 teams at 1-2 through Week 3, and the Air Mambas are one of them as they fall to the Skyhawks. And this one, we talked about the shooting with Providence defense kind of falling off. We talked about it in the post-game interview I did with the Skyhawks on Tuesday night. Their game plan was to go zone. The Skyhawks knew they weren't as big. They told us that, and so they were going to kind of concede the threes and see what happened and adjust. And they never really had to adjust because the Air Mambas made 3 as a team, all by Nick Lemoyne. 3 for 27 will be the story of this game. It wasn't a blowout, but the Skyhawks were in control because the Air Mambas could never get anything going from deep, especially when they were trying to come back and make up that deficit. A couple threes fall, that didn't, and things may be different. But, the Skyhawks, again, in this one, I think showed their versatility a little bit. And so we can kind of go there and use some of the stats from Tuesday night, Kyler. They defeat Providence defense, and they're hitting threes, and Noah James kind of carries them. That doesn't mean other people on their team didn't have a good game, but 38 is he was hot on Monday night. And then on Tuesday night they come back and they rebound. They get out rebounded 47-39 still, but they're able to kind of, whether it's get lucky, I don't like saying that, but the Air Mambas only making 3 threes won't happen often. So they take advantage of that. They're able to capitalize on that and get to 3-1. So, what is this win, again, kind of doing it differently than they did on Monday night? What does this win say about the Skyhawks as they get to 3-1?
Exactly. It's massive. It's definitely the biggest upset of the week, and it's something that shows that the Skyhawks are able to play in any different way, and they're serious about this. They were watching the film. They knew what to do. They really frustrated the Air Mambas, caused 17 turnovers compared to their 9. That's almost double. And yeah, they shot 11% from 3. That's not good at all, but a lot of that's because they were forced to shoot quick shots. They were late in the game, down by so much, and the Air Mambas would have possession for 20 seconds, and then Skyhawks would give the ball to Omar Rahman, and he would just drive to the hoop and get a poster. That's how that game went, and it was such a great performance from Skyhawks. You could feel the positivity coming from their bench versus the frustration coming from the Air Mambas bench, and all around, what a week for the Skyhawks.
What a week indeed. Omar Rahman led the way, 24 and 10 rebounds. So we talked about how, the threes weren't falling. The Skyhawks knew they were undersized, yet it was Rahman, who was able to just have his way inside. So that
Hmm.
was, I'm sure, a positive thing that was happening during the game. And the other thing that stands out from this box score, Noah James with 19, so he still made 5 threes and was effective from downtown. 17 turnovers for the Air Mambas. So sure, like I talked about, they out-rebounded the Skyhawks by 8, which probably kept them in the game a little longer than they should have been because they weren't hitting shots, open or contested. 17 turnovers compared to the Skyhawks 8 will make that lead balloon quicker when you're turning it over. And there's a sequence where there's football passes going on by the Air Mamas that are getting picked off. Like there was little stretches where they were trying to kind of speed up a little bit, trying to come back, and weren't able to do it ultimately in the end. So we kind of talked about the Skyhawks there. The Air Mambas again 1-2. Nick Lemoyne with 20. And Luis Ramirez, 9 points and 12 rebounds. Aiden Dozos, 7 for 17 and 0 of 8 from 3. And we talked about 4, 5, or 6 threes for Aiden last week, which they needed all of those against Lob City and just unable to get one to fall this week, which would have made things different. So, yeah, the Skyhawks get 2 wins, and now 2 games remain. I know we're going to save that first one, which means I am waiting on... Oh, no, one game left. Oh, boy, 1 game left. All right, and if I'm wrong, we'll figure it out later, but I think only the 1 game. It is Velocity getting their first win, taking down the Muffin Tops. All right, 78-43, Velocity gets the win, up by 15 after the first quarter, and kind of stays that way until halftime, and they pull away in the second half. We can talk about Velocity here with 5 guys, I believe, 5 or 6 guys. And of course, we have stats for this. But yeah, so 5 guys, not even their full team, and still able to take care of the Muffin Tops. What did Velocity do in this one?
I mean, they're the better team, and they shot very well. Ashton, got to give a shout out to him. He caught fire early in the game, 28 points, and that's with an injury in the third quarter, not even playing the fourth and half the third. It'll say Frank Smith had the most points, and shout out Frank Smith. A double-double pretty much every week is what you can expect from him now. But it was Ashton Alcock and Lance McKenzie who really just turned this game the Velocity's way.
Oh, good, I am unmuted. Yeah. So it is those 2 leading the way with 28 and 23 respectively. They go 12 of 24 from 3. You talked about the hot shooting, and it is Velocity able to blow it open and get the lead. And we talk about the Muffin Tops, 2 threes, both by Frank Smith in this one. So that's something that we will, I'm sure, continue to see improve for this team as they keep shooting and adjusting to the lower rims. But Velocity now also 1-2. So let me get the, that's all the games, right, Kyler? If you're paying attention, good. At least someone's paying attention, great. It definitely is not me, but yes, we talked about the halfway crooks. All right. It's because I'm all thrown off by the Skyhawks double dip. That's what's going on. Let's get the standings up here really quick, and then we can end it, and we'll put Kyler on the spot and as I come up with a question. But you can see there on your screen the standings. We have our 2 undefeated teams and the Skyhawks a half a game back. 2 teams at 2-1 that will play in week 4, halfway crooks and game breakers. So one of those teams will fall to 2-2. Someone has to win, someone has to lose. The 5 teams there at 1-2, and our 2 0 for teams as All Talk Sports is 0-2. The Muffin Tops 0-3. So Kyler, which of these teams, and the standings aren't official because tiebreakers would happen, and I didn't do tiebreakers yet. So tiebreakers would be head-to-head first if it was like this at the end of the season, and then point differential. And again, the 1 and 2 teams are not in any particular order. So just where they're located in the standings. Which team most surprises you, either in a good way or in a bad way, of kind of where they find themselves through 3 games?
Yeah, it's the Skyhawks in a good way and the Road Dogs in a bad way. That's not rocket science. We said at the end of last episode, we thought Road Dogs should be 2-1 and that the Washed Up Boys should be 2-1 as well. They dropped that game as well, and it's 2 straight weeks with disappointing losses for the Road Dogs. If you had told me this team would start off 3-0, I wouldn't have been surprised at all. And yet there they are in third to last. It's not really a spot where they should be. And they have such a tough matchup coming up this week. Don't be surprised if they're 1-3 and then they really got it turning into high gear. I think that this week is such a huge week for All Talk Sports. didn't play this week, want to be considered as a big team in the league. They got to get this win against Providence defense. And it's a winnable game. It's a tight game. This is one that I'm very excited to watch. And boy, if you're an All Talk Sports player, you really want to win this one. And in general, Waves Air Mambas, that's another game of two teams that they really have to win. And one team's going to win and get back on track, and one team's going to put themselves in quite a big hole.
What a preview. Yeah, so 1-2 teams facing off. And so first, All Talk Sports on Monday, July 1st, takes on Velocity. So, if you're All Talk Sports, you come into the week and you have two games. You're playing twice. You come in at 0-2. You're like, all right, let's take care of business Monday night. Let's get to 1-2. They join, sure, other teams will play, but they'll join, the 5 or 6 teams with the one win. And then they come back on Tuesday, and like you talked about, get Providence defense, one of those other one-win teams. So All Talk Sports, sure, you always want to win. They're like, all right, we can come out of week 4, 2-2, and kind of put ourselves in that conversation of, 5, 6, 7, 8 seed, depending, down the road, sure, but be in that mix of 2-win teams after week 4. And, like you talked about, one of, I almost looked at the wrong week. One of All Waves and Air Mambas is going to be 1-3. Providence defense in that scenario could fall to 1-3 or themselves be 2-2. We talked about the Game Breakers and Halfway Crooks coming up in week 4. One of those teams by default will be 2-2, and one will join the Skyhawks at 3-1. And the team that we're leaving, we already talked about Lob City Road Dogs. So really a lot of, good matchups in, week 4. That are going to allow teams to make some major jumps in the standings if things go their way and possibly, go the other way. Yeah. All right, Kyler, anything else? That's week 3. We're right on time here. Look at us go. Yeah. I love the analysis. What else you got? What's your, let's see, one word. This is, you're going to hate these games. One word to describe the first 3 weeks of the season, but you can only say one word.
Thrilling.
Perfect, and he doesn't even get to describe it. That is the Week 3 post-game show. Thrilling indeed. A couple overtime games. I like it. Some big stuff, and a lot of good matchups coming up in Week 4. Stay tuned. You can watch all of those live on our YouTube page starting on Monday, July 1st at 7:15, and then back again on Tuesday, July 2nd on 7:15. At 7:15 on our YouTube page, But yeah, so all the games are live. Check out thelegacyleagues.com for stats and standings, everything we talked about. And stay tuned for our power rankings as I've been give me the devil horns. I've been the one moving some teams around. But I think so far, we'll see. We will continue this conversation next week. Because I think so far, with some of my moves, I've been right. And I may have gotten a little lucky, but I think, the Air Mambas giving me crap of where they find themselves after a close loss to Lob City. Well, you see week 3 and maybe they were properly rated. My unbiased opinion of the Halfway Crooks, well, they pull out a close one. Maybe they were a little more properly rated in that 3, 4, 5 mix, even though they were 1-1 coming in. That's good. Yeah, the Skyhawks are probably going to jump. So yeah, maybe I know what I'm doing. Maybe I've done this once or twice before and I know what I'm doing, but we will do this again next week. The Week 4 post-game show after all those games take place. Kyler, good job, everybody, and thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned to thelegacyleagues.com.